I'm Mike May. I'm the editorial director for Scientific American Worldview, and I'm here today with Ken Kelly, who is the CEO of PaxVax, and we're at the Buzz Center, where we want to talk to you a little bit about what PaxVax is doing these days. So thanks for watching. Ken, thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. Before we get into this too deeply, could you tell us a little bit about PaxVax? What's the take-home message about this company?
Sure. Thanks, Mike. So PaxVax is a privately held, venture capital-backed biotech company focused on vaccines. But what differentiates PaxVax from much of the industry, there are 36 other vaccine companies, is our mission statement. We are a double bottom line company, which means that all of the investors, the board, the employees are focused on financial returns, but also social returns. How can we ensure greater access to our vaccines in the United States and globally? And we're very excited about that. And I think it's what differentiates us from the 36 other biotech companies in this space.
Sure. When you mentioned three dozen biotech companies in the space, but when you look at biotechs in general, especially say small biotechs, how do you compare to small biotechs in general?
Sure. Well, we are differentiated, again, stemming from that values and mission statement and how we raise capital. So while we have angel investment and venture capital investment, we've also been very successful at raising social impact money from the likes of the Wellcome Trust in London, which has supported our H5N1 bird flu potentially pandemic vaccine, as an example. We've also done a good job of leveraging contracts and R&D work with the US government on anthrax for biodefense and HIV.
Okay, great. Well, now we're talking about the small biotechs, but you're in a world of vaccines where it's not just the small biotechs, it's also biotechs, big pharmaceutical companies. How do you interact and work in this environment? Right.
Well, like many biotech companies that are the engines in terms of being nimble and quick and innovative, supplying products and technologies to big pharma in a very complementary way, if you will. The vaccine space, as you know, is dominated by 6 large multinationals, really, that dominate the industry. And there's only been a renaissance for small biotechs in the last 10 years, coincident with really the decade of vaccines. So the drivers for folks to come into the space have been the success of big pharma with products like Prevnar, first billion-dollar product in the category, Gardasil for HPV, new coming on board, and that's generated a lot of interest on the part of venture capitalists and entrepreneurs and academics to start these kinds of companies. Another driver has been, unfortunately, the anthrax attacks back in 9/11, which created Project BioShield and BARDA and all the funding for pandemic flu and anthrax vaccines in this country as well. And then lastly, we can't forget Bill and Melinda Gates and the foundation and all the product development partnerships or public-private partnerships that they've established. There are nearly 20 now over the last 10 years that have a particular interest in vaccines, whether it be malaria, tuberculosis, or HIV. And people recognize, again, that vaccines are the most cost-effective medicines in the world, and so it's not surprising that you've got these 3 drivers that are creating this industry. So we are very much complementary. All these biotech companies work in the vaccine space, complementary in helping the big 6 with innovation in vaccine candidates. But again, PaxVax is trying to differentiate itself in a different way, which is that we're trying to be fully integrated from research through manufacturing, marketing, and sales ourselves, not just partner with big pharma or be dependent on them.
Right.
And also, we're thinking of vaccine needs and products that are global, so not just the US market in terms of our travelers vaccines, but vaccines that can be used for epidemics or endemics in developing nations. So those are 2 other strategies to complement the social mission that differentiate PaxVax.
Right, so as you mentioned, the different kinds of angles you're taking on vaccines. Let's talk about something that you're working on now. If you had to pick out one of your products or things in a development stage, what would you like to tell us a little bit about?
Yeah, I would feature our lead vaccine, which is in phase 3, which is a single oral dose cholera vaccine. And it's the only single oral dose cholera vaccine in the world. And in fact, there's no cholera vaccine available to travelers from the United States.
Oh, wow.
There is a vaccine that's a 2-dose whole kill vaccine, not to get too technical, but there is a competitive product available in Europe and Canada and Australia, for example, for folks. But nothing for Americans traveling to perhaps areas of the world where there is endemic cholera. So you and your family are going to take a trip, a vacation to a country in sub-Saharan Africa with endemic cholera. You would not be protected unless this vaccine comes to market. So this vaccine, again, is single oral dose and very effective, so it could protect one in less than 1 week. So an ideal spec for a traveler's vaccine. And the same vaccine could be used in those endemic populations in a different form factor. And more importantly, this vaccine is now in phase 3 development. So we'll be starting that trial this summer. It'll take a year to complete. We already have fast track designation from the US FDA. So we anticipate a timely review and launch on the market by 2015.
Wow, that's great. Now, you mentioned a couple times that it's the single dose.
Yeah.
How important is it that it's a single dose?
Very important for a couple reasons. One is that when folks typically are traveling, they don't necessarily present to a travel physician with a lot of time before they leave. And you need a single dose because it's also fast acting, you need that 1 week. Most folks may show up 2 weeks before. So if you have, for example, in Europe and those other geographies, vaccine regimen that requires 2 doses or more and requires several weeks to protect, then it doesn't quite work. And so that's the ideal feature here.
And you've mentioned too the 1 week. How unusual is it to have a vaccine that's effective that fast?
There are other vaccines that can protect us quickly, but this one works because it is ingested orally. So you're activating mucosal immunity, cellular immunity, antibody immunity. It's really the cellular immunity and the mucosal immunity that plays and reacts very, very quickly and allows that protection.
Okay, so you're getting sort of a general protection very fast because it's activating all these different systems.
Yes, and let's not forget cholera. To state the obvious though, cholera is caused by Vibrio cholera, which is in dirty, contaminated drinking water. So you're protecting the site of entry. That's typically how you catch cholera or catch the disease.
Okay. Well, very exciting to hear about what you're doing. We really appreciate you being with us here today in the Buzz Center, Ken. Thanks for everybody for stopping by to watch this, and stay tuned to the Buzz Center for more interviews to follow. Thanks so much.
Thank you.